Ambassador Gary Morgan stands before the assembled representatives of 127 alien species and formally rejects the Galactic Council's proposed peace treaty. His voice carries through the cavernous crystalline dome atop the orbital station Harmony 7, each word landing like a physical blow upon the stunned audience. On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, I must decline the terms as presented in Treaty Document 429A, with specific objection to subsection 47B. The Council chamber erupts into chaos. Delegates rise from their seats, appendages gesticulating wildly. Translators struggle to keep pace with the flood of outraged statements in dozens of languages. The Vexillian delegate, a gelatinous mass of neural tissue, pulses angry red. The Dorani representatives beat their wing casings together in a deafening display of disapproval. Most dramatic is the reaction of Councillor Vexturag, the senior Tholian representative. The 8-foot insectoid's exoskeleton pales from its normal amber to a sickly yellow. Vexturag's chelicerae click rapidly before the councillor collapses onto the polished floor, mandibles twitching erratically. Medical team to the central chamber. Calls the automated system as biosensors detect the councillor's distress. Gary keeps his expression neutral, though his heart pounds against his ribs. 3 years of negotiations, culminating in this moment, this deliberate breaking point. The digital tablet in his hand displays the treaty's hidden provisions that Admiral Helena Wang's intelligence team discovered yesterday. Restrictions limiting Earth to expansion into only 5 additional star systems over the next century, and provisions granting the Council authority to cap human military capabilities. Gary scans the room, catching the eye of Estelle, a Tholian cultural attaché standing near the chamber's eastern entrance. Smaller than others of her kind, her iridescent blue carapace marks her as part of the diplomatic caste. She gives an almost imperceptible nod, confirmation that she stands by her decision to provide evidence of the Council's duplicity, despite the treason charges she'll likely face among her own people. The relationship between humans and Tholians had deteriorated precisely 3 years ago, when human mining operations established a colony on Proxima Centauri B, unknowingly violating territorial claims of the technologically superior Tholian Empire. The Tholians, rigid in their adherence to legal protocols, responded by blockading Earth's solar system with their crystalline ships. Early skirmishes demonstrated unexpected human resilience, giving the Tholians pause before launching a full-scale assault. Supreme Councillor Jalak rises from the central dais, 4 arms extended in a calming gesture that fails to quell the uproar. The tall, spindly alien's voice cuts through the cacophony. Order, we will have order. Gary uses the momentary lull to gather his materials. The true reason for his rejection burns in his pocket, a data crystal containing intercepted communications, revealing the Council's actual agenda. Containing humanity's rapid technological advancement that threatened the power balance maintained for millennia. Medical technicians rush past Gary to attend to the collapsed Tholian councillor. Gary steps away from the podium, making his exit as Estelle hurries to join him in the corridor outside. Behind them, Jalak activates emergency protocols. Warning lights pulse along the chamber walls as alerts transmit across galactic communication channels. Caution, potential human aggression imminent. They're already spinning this as human belligerence, Estelle says, her translator rendering her clicks and vibrations into English. Your people will be isolated, cut off from established trade routes and diplomatic protection. Gary nods, feeling the weight of Earth's vulnerability in this moment. Without treaty protection, humanity stands exposed to species who view them as a threat to be eliminated. His fingers touch the data crystal containing humanity's counter-proposal, not surrender, but a demand for equal standing based on technological innovations humans have kept secret. That was their mistake, Gary says as they board the private elevator to the docking bay. They assumed we came here seeking protection. We came seeking partners. The crystal contained specifications for advancements in faster-than-light travel that could render current galactic power structures obsolete. The Council wanted to contain humanity. They would soon discover that humanity refused to be contained. The elevator doors slide open, revealing the shuttle bay. Gary and Estelle stride toward the Terran Hope, its sleek, titanium alloy hull gleaming under the bay lights. Captain Marcus Foster waits at the boarding ramp, his expression tense. "Time to go, Ambassador," Marcus says, eyes darting to the security officers assembling at the far end of the bay. "We've got company." Gary and Estelle hurry aboard as Marcus seals the airlock behind them. The shuttle's interior hums with activity as pre-flight systems activate. "Initiating emergency protocols," Marcus announces, sliding into the pilot's seat. His fingers dance across the control interface. Harmony 7 security just tagged us as potential hostiles. Red warning lights flash across the shuttle bay as klaxons blare. The station's automated voice echoes through the chamber. "Attention. Unauthorized departure in progress. Security lockdown initiated." Gary straps himself into the co-pilot's seat. They're moving faster than anticipated. The massive bay doors begin to close, metal panels sliding together with inexorable precision. "Hold on," Marcus says, his face hardened. He jams the thrusters to maximum, sending the shuttle lurching forward. The Terran Hope accelerates toward the narrowing gap. Metal screams against metal as the port stabilizer clips the edge of the closing door. The shuttle shudders violently. "Port stabilizer damaged," the shuttle's computer reports. "Functionality at 63%. Could be worse," Marcus mutters, hands steady on the controls as they clear the station. "We're out, but we've got company." Gary glances at the tactical display. 3 sleek, predatory vessels with distinctive crimson markings detach from Harmony 7's docking ring. "Veloxian interceptors," Estelle says, her mandibles clicking rapidly. "They're Council mercenaries. And they've got us in weapons lock," Marcus adds grimly. Message from Counselor Jalak: they're demanding immediate return to Harmony 7 or they'll engage. Gary watches the interceptors fan out in a standard pursuit formation. Outrunning them isn't an option. Marcus's hands tighten on the controls. "No, but I can make their job difficult." He banks the shuttle sharply, diving toward a nearby field of orbital debris left from previous station expansions. The sudden maneuver throws Estelle against her harness. Gary braces himself as artificial gravity struggles to compensate. "Space Force tactics?" Gary asks. Marcus nods, eyes focused on navigating the debris field. "Advanced evasive maneuvers. 3rd Fleet standard." These mercenaries are good, but they're predictable. The shuttle twists through the maze of abandoned construction materials and defunct satellites. Behind them, the Veloxian interceptors adjust course, their superior engines steadily closing the distance. "I need to secure our package," Gary says, unstrapping from his seat. He moves to the rear compartment, retrieving the data crystal from his pocket. The small translucent device pulses with faint blue light as he places it within a quantum-locked safe embedded in the shuttle's bulkhead. 17 light minutes away on Earth, Admiral Helena Wang stands before a semicircle of grim-faced military commanders. The underground command center beneath New Geneva buzzes with controlled urgency. Holographic displays cast blue light across the faces of Earth's 5 defense sector commanders. As of 7:30 hours, Ambassador Morgan formally rejected the Council's treaty, Admiral Wang states, her voice steady. She gestures to the central display where a tactical map shows multiple fleet movements. "Intelligence confirms Veloxian and Droxy battle groups mobilizing toward our space." General Jackson Harris rises from his seat, pointing to a cluster of red markers approaching Proxima Centauri. The Droxy hive ships have already diverted 3 scout vessels toward our outer colonies. We've issued system-wide alerts and initiated civilian evacuation protocols for our most vulnerable settlements. How long until our fleet reaches combat readiness? Asks Commander Sanchez of the Pacific Defense Sector. 6 hours for primary response units, Wang replies. Full mobilization within 24, but we're outnumbered 10-1 if the Council commits its combined forces. The room falls silent as the implications sink in. Then we'd better hope Ambassador Morgan's plan works, Harris says. Back on the Terran Hope, Estelle connects her crystalline appendages to an interface panel, adapting the human technology to accept Tholian protocols. Her carapace glistens with concentrated effort as she accesses Council communications. They've declared me Krita outcast, she says, her translator rendering the clicks and vibrations into flat English that fails to convey the emotional weight of the Tholian term. My citizenship is revoked. There's an elimination order. Her normally vibrant blue carapace dulls to a matte gray. Gary moves beside her, careful to maintain distance from her heat-sensitive exoskeleton. Earth offers you asylum, Estelle, he says. Your knowledge and your courage won't be forgotten. Her carapace brightens momentarily, the blue taking on an almost luminescent quality. I knew the consequences when I provided the evidence. The Council's deception violated the fundamental principles the Tholian diplomatic caste is sworn to uphold. A sudden chime interrupts them as the communication system activates. The face that appears on the screen is human male, with a weathered complexion and unkempt beard. Ambassador Morgan, the man says. Dr. Elias Reeves, Xenoanthropology Division. I'm transmitting from Ardani DRME. Dr. Reeves, Gary acknowledges. We haven't heard from your research station in months. Security protocols, Reeves explains hurriedly. Listen carefully, the Ardani elders have called a conclave. This is unprecedented. They've remained neutral for millennia, but they're taking special interest in humanity's defiance. How do you know this? Gary asks. I've gained limited access to their historical archives, Reeves says. Every other species that's challenged Council authority has been systematically destroyed, but the Ardani see something different in humans' patterns that set us apart. The transmission flickers as interference builds. I'll transmit what data I can, but you should know Marcus interrupts from the cockpit. Ambassador, massive energy signature detected. The transmission cuts out as Gary rushes forward. The tactical display shows the Veloxian interceptors closing in, but beyond them, emerging from a nearby nebula, a colossal shape materializes. That's impossible, Marcus whispers. A vessel dwarfing even the largest Council dreadnoughts decloaks between the Terran Hope and its pursuers. Its design defies conventional starship architecture curves and angles that seem to fold into dimensions just beyond normal perception. Ancient symbols etched into its hull pulse with internal light. Those markings, Estelle says, mandibles clicking rapidly. They match artifacts found in the Tholian Forbidden Archives. A pulse of energy invisible except for its rippling effect on space itself extends from the massive vessel. The Veloxian interceptors freeze in place, immobilized but undamaged. The communication system activates without prompt. The being that appears on screen is vaguely humanoid but with proportions slightly askew, too tall, too thin, with features that seem to shift subtly when not directly observed. Its skin has a metallic quality that refracts light in impossible ways. Ambassador Gary Morgan of Earth, the being says, its voice resonating with harmonic overtones. I am Sentinel Archon of the Precursors. We have watched your species with great interest. Gary straightens, acutely aware of facing a member of a species thought to be merely legend. The Precursors are considered extinct by Council records. A deliberate misconception we have allowed to persist, Archon replies. We withdrew from galactic affairs 50,000 years ago, but we have not been idle. Why reveal yourselves now? Gary asks, because unlike the Council, which fears your potential, we recognize it. Your species possesses cognitive patterns and adaptability unique among sentient life, qualities we have waited for. Estelle moves forward, her carapace shimmering with excitement. The Shapers, she says. Tholian forbidden history speaks of your kind. You seeded the galaxy with the fundamental elements for life. Arkan's expression shifts in what might be approval. Your Tholian companion is well informed. Yes, Ambassador Morgan, humanity's emergence was not accident but culmination, the perfect balance of technological aptitude and emotional intelligence. The massive ship extends a shimmering field around the Terran Hope. Marcus reports all systems functioning normally, but they're now moving at impossible speed toward Earth. We offer escort to your homeworld, Arkan continues. There, representatives of my kind wish to discuss alliance. The Council's attempt to contain humanity is short-sighted. What approaches requires your species' unique attributes? What approaches? Gary asks. Arkan's expression grows solemn. A calamity that drove us into hiding millennia ago, one that now returns. Gary's mind races, calculating the implications. An alliance with the precursors would provide protection beyond anything they could have negotiated with the Council, but would also ensure immediate hostile action against all human settlements. The Council will attack Earth the moment they learn of this contact, Gary says. Yes, Arkan acknowledges, which is why your decision must be made quickly. The Terran Hope accelerates toward Earth, cradled in the protective field of the precursor vessel, while behind them, the paralyzed Veloxian interceptors begin transmitting emergency signals back to Harmony 7. The Council will attack Earth the moment they learn of this contact, Gary says. Yes, Arkan acknowledges, which is why your decision must be made quickly. The Terran Hope accelerates toward Earth, cradled in the protective field of the precursor vessel. Through the viewport, space itself seems to fold inward as the celestial arbiter, as Arkan named his vessel, opens what appears to be a tear in the fabric of reality. Transdimensional corridor forming, Arkan explains, his voice resonating through the shuttle's communication system. Your vessel's damaged stabilizer would not survive conventional faster-than-light travel to your homeworld. Marcus stares wide-eyed at the readings on his console. These energy signatures are off the charts. Nothing in our database even comes close. The tier widens, revealing a swirling tunnel of iridescent energy. The celestial arbiter guides the Terran Hope toward the corridor's entrance. What would normally take 3 weeks will require mere hours, Arkan says. Prepare yourselves. The transition can be disorienting for organic beings. Gary grips his seat as the shuttle enters the corridor. His vision blurs, colors invert. For a moment, he perceives multiple versions of himself sitting, standing, speaking, all occupying the same space simultaneously. Then reality snaps back into focus as they emerge near Luna's orbit. Transition complete, Arkan announces. Your neural patterns have adapted remarkably well, Ambassador Morgan, further evidence of humanity's unique qualities. Gary's attention fixes on the view beyond the viewport. Earth's defense fleet hovers in formation above the blue-green planet, 50 warships arranged in a precise geometric pattern. The Fibonacci defensive pattern, Estelle observes, her mandibles clicking rapidly. Specifically designed to counter Tholian attack strategies. Admiral Wang's work, Gary confirms, a hint of pride in his voice. She's been planning our defenses for years. Red warning lights flash across the shuttle's console as targeting systems lock onto both the Terran Hope and the massive precursor vessel. Earth's orbital platforms have weapons locked, Marcus reports. And the fleet is repositioning to intercept. They're treating us as a potential hostile. Gary activates the emergency diplomatic channel, entering his personal override codes. This is Ambassador Gary Morgan aboard the Terran Hope. Authorization code Sierra Echo Victor 943. Hold fire. Repeat, hold fire. We are accompanied by non-hostile contact of extreme significance. The communication screen flickers, revealing Admiral Wang's stern face. Ambassador Morgan, explain the unidentified vessel. Our sensors indicate technology far beyond Council capabilities. Gary gestures toward Arkin, who steps into view of the transmission. Admiral, I present Sentinel Arkin of the Precursors. Their species has offered alliance against Council aggression, but there's more at stake than our current situation. Request immediate conference with highest leadership. Wang's expression remains neutral, but her eyes widen slightly at the sight of Arkin. Tranquility Base is prepared to receive you. Follow transmitted approach vector precisely. Any deviation will be considered hostile action. The transmission ends. Marcus receives the approach coordinates and adjusts course toward the moon. Your military remains vigilant, Arkin observes. A wise precaution. The celestial arbiter maintains distance, following the Terran Hope toward Luna. As they descend toward the lunar surface, the stark landscape of Timicaris crater comes into view. Carved directly into the crater wall stands Tranquility Base, a fortress of metal and composite materials, overflowing with defensive systems. Energy shields shimmer across the structure's entrance, while the unmistakable silhouettes of anti-matter cannons track their approach. The Terran Hope lands on a designated pad. Marcus powers down the engines, running a final diagnostic on the damaged stabilizer. They'll need at least 48 hours to repair this, he notes. Assuming we're still here in 48 hours. Gary unbuckles his harness. Let's hope we are. A delegation awaits them as they disembark a line of officers in Space Force formal uniforms, flanked by security personnel with pulse rifles. At their center stands Admiral Wang, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. Beside her, a stocky man with deep brown skin and calculating eyes steps forward. President Santiago, Gary says, surprised. I didn't expect you to leave Earth during this crisis. Some meetings warrant breaking protocol, Ambassador, President Omar Santiago replies, his voice carrying the slight accent of the Mars colonies where he began his political career. His gaze shifts to Estelle, then lingers on Arkin, who materializes beside the shuttle without having visibly exited it. Welcome to Luna, Sentinel Arkin, Santiago says without missing a beat. Your appearance is unexpected but potentially fortuitous, given current circumstances. Arkin inclines his head in acknowledgement. Up close, his physical form is more unsettling, a tall, crystalline humanoid whose interior pulsates with what appear to be miniature stars and swirling nebulae. His movements produce subtle harmonics that resonate at the edge of human hearing. President Santiago, Arkin responds. Your composure speaks well of humanity's readiness for what comes. They proceed through reinforced corridors to the Lunar Conference Center, carved deep into the regolith beneath the crater floor. The chamber itself is a marvel of human engineering, a perfect hemisphere, with walls displaying real-time tactical information from across the solar system. Earth dominates one section, its orbital defenses highlighted in blue. Red markers indicate Council communication relays at the system's edge. Once sealed inside, Santiago turns to Arkin. I understand you claim to be of the precursor species believed extinct for 50 millennia according to all available records. A misconception we have allowed to persist, Arkin replies, his form shifting slightly as he settles into a human-style chair that seems inadequate for his proportions. We withdrew from galactic affairs by choice, not extinction. And why reveal yourselves now? Admiral Wang asks, specifically to humanity. Arkin's interior nebulae swirl faster as he leans forward. Because you face an imminent threat greater than the Council's aggression, a phenomenon we call the convergence. The air in the center of the conference table shimmers as Arkin projects a three-dimensional image of the galaxy. A wave of distortion approaches from one edge, consuming stars in its path. This entropy wave is undetectable by current Council technology, Arkin explains. It was the reason for our retreat millennia ago. We sought solutions while observing the development of newer species. President Santiago studies the projection, and humanity factors into this solution. Your neural patterns, Arkin says, the specific way human minds process reality. We discovered through millennia of research that only beings with your cognitive architecture can perceive and potentially manipulate the quantum fields necessary to disperse the convergence. Gary exchanges glances with Estelle, whose carapace has shifted to a deep blue Atholian expression of intense focus. You're saying humanity is uniquely qualified to combat this entropy wave? Gary asks. Yes, Arkin confirms. Though not alone, you require our technology and knowledge to channel this capability. A sudden alert sounds. Admiral Wang moves to a console where a junior officer speaks urgently into her ear. Her expression darkens. The Council has declared a state of emergency, Wang announces. First time in 7,000 years. Their peacekeeper fleet has mobilized 300 warships heading toward Sol system under command of Grand Admiral K.L. Vok. Veloxian, Estelle says, her mandibles clicking rapidly. The most aggressive of the Council species. If he commands this fleet, the Council intends full military subjugation. President Santiago's face remains composed, but his hands clench slightly. How long until they reach our outer defense perimeter? 36 hours at current velocity, Wang replies. Then we have limited time, Santiago says, turning back to Arkin. I appreciate your warning about this convergence, but our immediate concern is surviving the next 2 days. The conference room door slides open, admitting a disheveled human male accompanied by 3 tall, slender beings with opalescent skin and 6 arms each. The human's beard is longer than in his transmission, his clothes stained with the red dust of a Dr. Earth world. Dr. Reeves, Gary acknowledges. You made it. Courtesy of Ardani Transport, Reeves replies, gesturing to his companions. Ambassador Morgan, President Santiago, may I present the Ardani elders. They've left their homeworld for the first time in recorded history to meet with us. The tallest of the Ardani steps forward, moving with liquid grace. I am Elder Meritin, she says, her voice melodic yet somehow hollow, as if speaking from within a cave. We come to confirm what the precursor has told you. The convergence approaches, and your species represents a critical element in combating it. Admiral Wang's console chimes again. Her face pales as she reads the incoming data. Mr. President, she says urgently, the peacekeeper fleet has divided. The main force continues toward Earth, but 2 battle groups have diverted toward our colony worlds. And there's more intelligence indicates they've activated something called the Sunforge Protocol. Gary feels a chill run through him at the name. The Sunforge is ancient technology, rumored to exist only in classified Council archives, if they've activated it. What does this weapon do? Santiago demands. It induces targeted solar flares, Estelle explains, her carapace dimming to ash gray, directed precisely at inhabited planets. Arkin steps forward, his crystalline form pulsing with what appears to be urgency. They will target Earth first. Projected casualty rate, 40% of your planet's population. The room falls silent as the implicatum sink in. Gary looks from Arkin to the Ardani elders, then to Estelle, whose alien features somehow convey the same concern he feels. How long do we have? President Santiago asks, his voice perfectly steady. 48 hours, Arkin replies, perhaps less. Santiago turns to Admiral Wang. Activate Project Safeguard immediately. Full planetary shield deployment. Wang nods, already entering commands into her console. Sending authorization codes to Professor Reed in New Shanghai now. Santiago faces the assembled group, his expression resolute. It seems we have decisions to make, not only about our defense but about our place in the galaxy. He looks directly at Gary. Ambassador Morgan, you've had the most direct contact with both the precursors and the Ardani. Your assessment? Gary feels the weight of billions of lives in this moment. Earth's future, humanity's future balances on the response he gives. Gary draws a deep breath, keenly aware of every face turned toward him. I believe we're witnessing something unprecedented. The precursors and Ardani haven't simply chosen humanity as convenient allies against the Council. They've identified something fundamental in our neurological makeup that serves a greater purpose. Santiago nods, but theory won't defend Earth from the Sunforge. No, sir, Gary agrees, but we may have options the Council doesn't know about. The President turns to Admiral Wang. Activate Operation Bulwark immediately. Wang meets his gaze. You're Mr. Artane, Mr. President. Once we reveal these capabilities, the time for hiding our technological advances has passed, Santiago says firmly. Authorization code, Phoenix Omega 79. Admiral Wang accesses a secure terminal, entering a complex sequence. A three-dimensional map of the solar system appears, overlaid with 37 blinking points distributed strategically throughout. What are we looking at? Gary asks. Operation Bulwark, Admiral Wang explains. 37 gravitational displacement satellites we've been positioning throughout the system over the past 5 years, disguised as standard research platforms. Arkin moves closer to the display, his crystalline form casting prismatic patterns across the room's surfaces. Impressive. You've created localized space-time manipulators. Reverse engineered from technology we acquired, Wang says carefully, and significantly enhanced by our engineers. Each satellite can generate directed gravitational fields capable of redirecting solar flares away from inhabited worlds. The door slides open again. A broad-shouldered man with close-cropped gray hair strides in, his uniform bearing the insignia of Earth Defense Force High Command. General Harris, President Santiago acknowledges. Status of the Artemis Grid. Ray Mr. For activation, Mr. President, my team on Pluto is standing by. Estelle's mandibles click rapidly. Pluto, you have a military installation that far out. We have many things the Council doesn't know about, Santiago says. General, proceed with grid activation. Harris nods and activates his wrist communicator. Harris to Pluto Command. Execute Artemis Protocol Alpha. The solar system display shifts, zooming out to show Pluto's orbit. Multiple points of light flicker into existence around the dwarf planet, 200 previously invisible platforms decloaking in precise formation. Each platform houses autonomous combat drones equipped with phase-shifting technology, Harris explains. They can briefly exist outside normal space-time, making them effectively untargetable by conventional weapons. Gary watches as the simulation shows the platforms deploying swarms of smaller units, 500 drones moving to defensive positions throughout the outer system. You've been preparing for war, Estelle observes, her carapace shifting to a contemplative amber. We've been preparing to survive, Santiago corrects. Ever since first contact, when the Council made it clear humanity would remain forever subordinate. Elder Meriton of the Ardani approaches the display, her 6 arms moving in fluid gestures that convey both concern and admiration. Your species continues to surprise us. These preparations are extensive and not limited to military assets, Santiago adds, tapping commands into the conference table. New data feeds appear, evacuation protocols activating across Mars, Europa, Titan, and a dozen other human settlements. On Mars, the feed shows Governor Miguel Vasquez directing the flow of civilians into massive underground facilities beneath Olympus City. The bunkers extend deep beneath the Martian surface, their true scale revealed as the camera pans across living quarters, hydroponic farms, and water reclamation systems designed to sustain millions of people for decades. All these precautions, Gary says, hidden in plain sight. Necessary precautions, President Santiago replies. And now perhaps the difference between survival and extinction. An alert sounds. Admiral Wang examines the incoming data. Contact near Neptune, she reports. Captain Foster and the Intrepid Squadron have engaged a Veloxian battle group. They're outnumbered 2-1. The display shifts to show tactical data from the engagement. 30 human vessels appear to be charging directly at 60 Veloxian warships in what looks like suicide. What is Foster doing? Gary asks, recognizing the apparent madness of the maneuver. A slight smile crosses Admiral Wang's face, executing her orders perfectly. On the display, the Intrepid and its accompanying ships activate their quantum entanglement drives simultaneously. The space between the human and Veloxian fleets distorts, creating paired linkages that temporarily connect each human vessel with a Veloxian counterpart. What's happening? Santiago demands as the Veloxian ships begin firing. The quantum drive creates positional entanglement, General Harris explains. When the Veloxians target our ships, they're essentially targeting themselves. The display confirms his words. Veloxian energy weapons curve back toward their origins, 17 cruisers erupting in spectacular explosions before the remaining commanders realize the trap and cease fire. First blood to Earth, Harris remarks, satisfaction evident in his tone. This changes our diplomatic position significantly, Gary says, mind racing through implications. We need to formalize our alliance with the precursors, and Ardani immediately show the Council we're not isolated. Elder Meriton nods in agreement. A formal Trinity alliance would carry significant weight. I am authorized to negotiate on behalf of all Ardani clusters, and I represent the precursor consensus, Arkin adds. Though my authority extends only to defensive measures, not political alignments, Gary turns to Estelle. As a former Council diplomat, your insight will be invaluable in drafting terms the Council will understand and perhaps respect. President Santiago gestures to a side chamber. Use the diplomatic suite. I need something concrete to transmit to sympathetic Council members within the next 4 hours. As Gary moves to leave with Estelle and the Ardani elders, Arkin stops him with a light touch that sends an odd tingling sensation up his arm. Ambassador Morgan, there is something you should understand about why the precursors have chosen this moment and your species for ray emergence. I assumed it was the convergence threat, Gary replies. Partially, Arkin says. We've waited millennia for a species with the right neurological architecture to help combat the entropy wave. But we required more than just compatible brain patterns. We needed beings who would use such power responsibly. And you believe humans fit that criteria? Gary asks skeptically, thinking of humanity's bloody history. Your species achieved in thousands of years what others required millions to develop, Arkin says. Your capacity for both destruction and compassion, for both scientific advancement and ethical consideration, this combination is extraordinarily rare. Doctor. F or Gary can respond, Doctor. Reeves approaches, holding a data tablet displaying complex calculations. You need Doctor to see this, he says urgently. Dr. Victoria Summers at Pacific Quantum just made a breakthrough. The convergence isn't a natural phenomenon. Explain, Arkin demands, his crystalline body pulsing with sudden intensity. It's artificial, the result of ancient technology deployed in a war that bred a doctor. Even the precursors, Reeves continues. Dr. Summers combined human theoretical models with precursor data and Ardani historical records to identify energy signatures consistent with weaponized space-time manipulation. If it's artificial, Gary reasons, then it can be stopped, not just diverted. An alert interrupts them. Admiral Wang's expression darkens as she reviews the incoming data. Supreme Counselor Jalek has accelerated the Sunforge activation sequence, she reports. They're cutting the preparation time from 24 hours to 8. That increases the risk of uncontrolled solar eruptions, Estelle interjects, her carapace paling. They could damage multiple systems beyond Earth. It's causing political fractures within the Council, Wang continues. 15 species have formally protested the action as disproportionate. Gary sees the opportunity immediately. We need to exploit that division. I still have contacts among Council diplomatic personnel. We can share evidence of the convergence threat with sympathetic members. Do it, Santiago orders. And add proof of our new alliances. Make it clear Earth doesn't stand alone. Gary nods, already composing messages in his mind. Estelle, can you provide authentication codes that will ensure Council members take these communications seriously? Better, she replies. I previously submitted documentation to the Tholian Central Authority questioning Jalak's motivations, if we can provide them with additional evidence. Then the Tholians might withdraw support for this operation, Gary finishes. The conference room's main screen flickers with an incoming transmission, the source marked as unknown. Intercept from within Council space, the communications officer announces. Origin disguised Boo Doctor, authenticated with quantum verification protocols. Dr. Reeves steps forward suddenly. It's the Galactic Truth Coalition. Allow the transmission. The screen determinations to show Adroxy male, his SC Doctor, D-face partially obscured by laboratory equipment. This is Dr. Corvin Maz, Reeves explains. Le Doctor, NG physicist and apparently head of a secret scientific enclave. Dr. Reeves, the Droxy acknowledges. We've confirmed your findings regarding the convergence. Our coalition has been studying the same anomalies independently. We request asylum on Earth in exchange for our research data and prototype technology. Admiral Wang shakes her head. Extraction is impossible with the Peacekeeper fleet between us and Council space. Not necessarily, says a new voice. Captain Robert Drake stands in the doorway, his lean frame still dressed in the black uniform of Phantom-class vessel operators. The Phantom can penetrate Council space under total communications blackout. We've done it before. President Santiago studies Drake for a moment before turning to Admiral Wang. Feasibility assessment. High risk, she replies, but potentially high reward if Dr. Olishan's technology is as valuable as they claim. 22 scientists, Dr. Maz adds from the screen. All experts in fields relevant to both the convergence and current Council military technology. We're prepared to depart immediately from our facility on Centauri Prime. Santiago nods decisively. Captain Drake, prepare your ship. Admiral Wang will provide mission parameters. As Drake leaves to prepare, Arkin moves to the center of the room. His crystalline form begins to pulse with increasing intensity. There is one more asset I can offer, he says. The Celestial Arbiter is more than a vessel. It houses the Nexus Forge, capable of creating stable wormholes large enough to evacuate entire planets if necessary. Gary feels the atmosphere in the room shift as everyone processes this revelation. Why haven't you mentioned this before? Santiago demands. Because activation requires a unique form of psychic resonance, Arkin explains. A resonance that only human and Tholian minds working in concert can generate. All eyes shift to Gary and Estelle. Our neural patterns, Gary realizes. That's why you brought us together on the Arbiter. Yes, Arkin confirms. Your developing connection is not coincidental, it's instrumental to accessing the Forge's capabilities. Admiral Wang's console chimes again. The Tholian Central Authority has announced withdrawal from the Peacekeeper operation. They're recalling 27 warships. The political pressure is working, Gary says with satisfaction. But the Sunforge activation continues, Wang adds grimly. We have less than 8 hours. Santiago surveys the room, taking in each face before speaking. We proceed on all fronts. Ambassador Morgan finalized the Trinity Alliance Treaty. Admiral Wang coordinate bulwark deployment. General Harris positioned the Artemis grid to intercept the main peacekeeper fleet, and Captain Drake, he activates the intercom, extract those scientists at any cost. Gary looks at Estelle, whose compound eyes reflect the tactical displays showing Earth's defenses activating across the solar system. It seems our neural compatibility has greater implications than we realized, he says quietly. Indeed, she replies, her mandibles clicking softly. Though I find it curious that the key to potentially saving the galaxy lies in the connection between two species that were strangers just months ago. As they move toward the diplomatic suite to begin drafting the Trinity Alliance Treaty, Gary glances back at the solar system display. Earth appears small and vulnerable from this distance, a blue-green sphere suspended in the vastness of space, with hundreds of red markers Council warships converging on its position. 8 hours until the Sunforge activation. 17 years until the convergence reaches the galaxy. The immediate threat and the long-term extinction event humanity would need to survive both. In the conference room behind them, Arkin begins interfacing with Earth's defense systems, his crystalline form projecting complex equations across multiple screens simultaneously. The celestial arbiter, visible through the viewport orbiting above Luna, begins to transform its massive hull, reconfiguring to reveal an ancient mechanism that glows with energy older than human civilization. Watching the ancient vessel reshape itself, Gary felt a momentary vertigo as the scale of what they faced truly registered. The countdown to humanity's survival or extinction had begun. Ambassador Morgan, Captain Robert Drake's voice crackled through the comms. Phantom is prepped and ready for launch. I need any final intelligence on the facility layout at Centauri Prime. Gary turned from the viewport. Drake stood in the doorway, his black stealth operations uniform absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The captain's face bore the weathered look of someone who had crossed Council borders undetected more times than officially acknowledged. Sending the schematics now, Admiral Wang responded, transferring data to Drake's tactical pad. Our intelligence indicates the scientists are housed in the lower levels, disguised as an asteroid mining operation on Centauri Prime's third moon. Drake nodded, scanning the blueprints. Extraction team is prepped. 6 operators, led by Lieutenant Wilson, will be dark once we cross the Kuiper Belt. This mission cannot fail, President Santiago said, her voice steady but grave. Those scientists may hold the key to understanding the convergence. The Phantom won't be detected, Drake replied with quiet confidence. Our hull absorbs electromagnetic emissions, while the light-bending tech makes us effectively invisible to standard scanners. As Drake departed, Gary felt Estelle's presence beside him. The neural harmonization procedure Arkin described, she said quietly, mandibles clicking softly. I've studied human neurophysiology. The process will be intimate. Gary met her compound eyes. Intimate how exactly? Our minds will merge temporarily, she explained. You will experience Tholian consciousness, and I will experience human emotion directly. Few cross-species neural interfaces have ever been attempted. Before Gary could respond, the tactical display shifted dramatically. Red markers representing Council warships accelerated toward the solar system. The Peacekeeper fleet has entered the outer system, Admiral Wang announced. 233 vessels remaining after the Tholian withdrawal. Execute Operation Scattered Shield, Santiago ordered. Wang nodded, inputting commands. On the display, blue markers representing Earth's defense fleet began moving in seemingly random patterns. Chess-inspired tactical formations, Wang explained to the room. Most Council species rely on rigid combat doctrines. Their targeting algorithms won't be optimized for this level of apparent disorder. A strategy based on a human board game, Elder Meritin asked. Sometimes the most effective military innovations come from non-military sources, General Harris replied. Gary watched as the Council fleet approached Mars, breaking into multiple attack formations. A slight smile crossed Admiral Wang's face as she entered a final command sequence. The tactical display erupted with new indicators throughout the asteroid belt. Dozens of anti-matter mines planted months earlier as a contingency detonated in sequence. The Council fleet formations dissolved into chaos as debris clouds expanded across their path. 49 Council vessels damaged, Wang reported. They're altering course, exactly as predicted. The redirected Council ships moved directly into range of Earth's lunar defenses. Massive rail cannons, hidden beneath the surface of the Moon, opened fire. Depleted uranium projectiles accelerated to near-relativistic speeds tore through the Council formation. 17 direct hits, Harris reported. The remainder are adjusting defensive shields. Gary felt a strange mix of pride and horror watching the human counter-offensive. Humanity had been considered a minor power, yet here they were, outmaneuvering the galaxy's premier military force. Ambassador Morgan, Sentinel Estelle, Arkin called from the adjacent chamber. The Nexus Forge is prepared. We must begin the neural harmonization immediately. Gary glanced at Estelle, whose carapace seemed to pale slightly. They followed Arkin to the Celestial Arbiter's control nexus, where crystalline interfaces pulsed with ancient energies. The procedure requires both of you to establish mental synchronization, Arkin explained. The Nexus Forge responds only to specific neural patterns, a safeguard implemented when it was constructed. Two crystalline chairs faced each other in the center of the chamber. As Gary sat, interfaces extended to connect with his temples. This will be disorienting, Arkin warned. You will each experience the other's consciousness directly. Gary looked at Estelle as she settled into the opposite chair. See you on the other side, Sentinel. The neural link activated. Gary's mind expanded suddenly, encountering crystalline thought patterns of unprecedented order and complexity. Tholian consciousness operated on principles of perfect logical structures, mathematical in their precision. His human emotions seemed chaotic by comparison, vibrant bursts of color against the organized latticework of Estelle's mind. Simultaneously, he felt Estelle experiencing his thoughts, her surprise at the intensity of human emotion, the rich palette of feelings that accompanied even his simplest thoughts. They shared memories, impressions, entire lifetimes of experience compressed into seconds. Through their linked consciousness, Gary witnessed Estelle's first view of Earth through her compound eyes, a kaleidoscopic vision of blue and green, unlike anything in Tholian space. She, in turn, experienced his wonder upon first seeing the crystalline spires of the Tholian Central Authority. The Nexus Forge responded to their merged consciousness. Ancient machinery hummed to life throughout the Arbiter, power systems dormant for millennia reactivating in sequence. The ship's hull reconfigured further, revealing intricate mechanisms designed to manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. When the neural link finally disengaged, Gary slumped forward, physically drained. Medical personnel rushed to attend to both him and Estelle, who had collapsed against her restraints. The primary systems are online, Arkin announced, his crystalline form pulsing with intensity. The Forge has accepted your neural patterns. Through the viewport, Gary watched crystal-like structures emerging from lunar craters, forming a network that connected to Earth's gravitational displacement satellites. What's happening? He asked weakly. The precursor defense system, Arkin explained. Dormant for millennia, now awakening to amplify your planet's defenses. On the tactical display, the Phantom had disappeared from sensors already deep in Council space, running silent. Drake's mission to extract the Galactic Truth Coalition scientists was underway. Meanwhile, Admiral Wang's strategy continued to confound the Council fleet. The peacekeeper vessels, now divided and damaged, struggled to regroup against Earth's unconventional defense patterns. But on the Council command vessel, Inevitable Justice, Supreme Counselor Jalek made his desperate move. Override codes flashed across the Sunforge control systems as he personally initiated the final activation sequence, bypassing safety protocols and legal requirements for consensus. The sun's surface began to roil, a massive prominence forming and gradually coalescing into a directed stream of plasma aimed directly at Earth. Sunforge activation detected, Admiral Wang reported, her voice tight. Estimated impact in 17 minutes. Activate bulwark, Santiago ordered. Earth's gravitational displacement network powered up, creating a protective field designed to divert the incoming solar assault. The lunar crystal structures amplified the effect, strengthening the defensive barrier. When the solar flare struck the displacement field, the sky above Earth transformed. A luminous arc of superheated plasma curved around the planet, parts of the upper atmosphere glowing with terrible beauty as the diverted energy dispersed harmlessly into space. The first attack had been repelled, but alarms sounded throughout the command center. The Sunforge is recharging, Wang warned. Sensors indicate the second strike will be significantly more powerful. On the communications channel, a new voice cut through the tension. Tranquility Base to command. The Phantom has returned. The stealth vessel materialized in lunar orbit, its port thrusters visibly damaged. Gary straightened in his chair as the camera feed showed DRKE escorting 22 alien scientists into the lunar facility. At their head walked Dr. Corvin Maz, the Droxy physicist whose scaled face Gary recognized from the earlier transmission. We have the coalition scientists, Admiral Wang confirmed. And apparently a new problem. The Sunforge attack wasn't the end of our troubles, just the beginning. On the tactical display, Gary watched as 43 Veloxian warships suddenly broke formation from the main Peacekeeper fleet, turning their weapons on the Inevitable Justice. Grand Admiral K. Elvok's voice boomed through intercepted communications channels, declaring his intention to seize control of the Council military apparatus. Doctor. The Council is tearing itself apart, Gary observed, still weak from the neural harmonization. Dr. Corvin Maz rushed into the command center, clutching data cores recovered during the extraction. We have the solution, he announced, eyes darting between the gathered leaders. But first, we need to survive the next Sunforge attack. The Droxy scientist pointed to the Phantom on the display. Your vessel's quantum mirroring technology, it could be reconfigured to create a dimensional reflection that would redirect the Sunforge's energy back to its source. Captain Drake, who had followed the scientists to the command center, stepped forward. That would require positioning the Phantom directly between Earth and the forming solar prominence. Projected survival rate, Admiral Wang asked. Drake met her gaze steadily. 37% at best. Before anyone could respond, sensors detected a new threat: the Sunforge beginning its second charging sequence. Earth's defenses had held against the first attack, but everyone in the room understood the stakes had just escalated dramatically. We need a decision, Drake said. The Phantom can be ready to launch in 12 minutes. Gary looked from Drake to the scientists, then to the tactical display showing Council ships firing on each other as the Veloxian coup attempt spread chaos through the Peacekeeper fleet. The countdown to Earth's survival continued its relentless advance. Gary's eyes remained fixed on the tactical display as the countdown continued. Earth's defenses had barely withstood the first Sunforge attack, and intelligence suggested the second would be far more powerful. The Phantom is our best chance, Drake said, his voice firm. We'll position ourselves directly between Earth and the solar prominence. The quantum mirroring technology can redirect the energy back to its source. You understand what you're proposing? Santiago asked, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Drake nodded. We do, Madam President. Prepare for immediate launch, Admiral Wang ordered. All non-essential personnel will evacuate to Tranquility Base. Drake strode toward the exit, pausing briefly at Gary's side. Good luck with your scientists, Ambassador. Let's hope we both succeed. Within minutes, the Phantom detached from its lunar berth, thrusters glowing as it accelerated away from Earth, heading toward the turbulent surface of the Sun, where the Sunforge was gathering energy for its second attack. Watched the vessel's progress on the tactical display, a cold weight settling in his stomach. Meanwhile, Dr. Corvin Maz huddled with his team of scientists, analyzing data streams from the extraction mission. Temperature rising in all sections, Lieutenant Wilson reported from his station on the Phantom's bridge. Radiatio, Doctor, evils increasing. Drake nodded, his eyes never leaving the navigation displays. Position us precisely according to Dr. Ma's calculations. The quantum mirror must capture the full force of the discharge. Captain, Communications Officer Chen called out, we're detecting unusual energy signatures within our own systems. Specify, Drake demanded. Internal scans show unfamiliar devices attached to multiple critical systems, including Chen's voice faltered. Sir, they appear to be Veloxian explosive devices. Drake's expression hardened. Security teams, sweep the ship. Locate and neutralize all devices immediately. Lieutenant Wilson assembled his team and moved swiftly through the Phantom's corridors. The internal temperature continued to climb as the ship maintained its position between Earth and the intensifying solar prominence. Sweat poured down Wilson's face, his uniform already soaked through. Engine room, he ordered his team. That's our priority. When they reached engineering, the heat was nearly unbearable. Engineer Sarah Kuznetsov was already there, her scanner hovering over a sleek alien device fused to the quantum mirroring emitter array. Found it, she called out, her voice tight. It's the largest one directly connected to our primary defensive system. Wilson checked the mission clock, 8 minutes until the Sunforge discharged. Can you disarm it? He asked, moving beside her. Kuznetsov nodded, her face glistening with sweat. I need to access the inner circuitry. Hold this panel back. Wilson gripped the metal panel as she pulled it aside, both of them flinching as their fingers contacted the superheated surface. Radiation alarms blared throughout the ship as the solar prominence grew more intense. Captain, Wilson reported through his comm, we've located the primary device in engineering, attempting to disarm now. On the bridge, Drake received the report while manually adjusting the Phantom's position. The ship shuddered as emergency thrusters fired in precise bursts, compensating for increasingly erratic solar flares that threatened to engulf them completely. Maintain your position, Lieutenant, Drake ordered. We're experiencing unusual fluctuations in the prominence. I'm compensating manually. Drake's hands moved across the controls with practiced precision, his eyes flicking between sensor readings and the massive, roiling surface of the sun visible through the forward viewport. The Phantom's hull creaked under the strain, thermal shielding already exceeding design specifications. Aboard the inevitable Justice, chaos reigned. Supreme Counselor Jalek had barricaded himself in the Sunforge control chamber, surrounded by loyal guards as Veloxian boarding parties fought their way through the ship's corridors. They must not interfere, Jalek hissed to his chief security officer. The humans represent an unacceptable deviation from established order. They must be eliminated. The ship's internal defense systems activated, plasma turrets emerging from recessed panels in the ceilings. Lethal energy discharges cut down combatants from both sides as the vessel's AI attempted to protect its command center. Jalak's slender fingers moved across the Sunforge controls, initiating the final firing sequence. The massive weapon began drawing unprecedented energy from the sun's core, forming a prominence 340% more powerful than the first attack. For the preservation of galactic stability, he whispered, transmitting his personal logs to his homeworld. I accept full responsibility for this necessary action. In Earth's Defense Command Center, Admiral Wang's face remained impassive as she received the alarming readings from solar monitoring stations. The second discharge will overwhelm our defenses, she announced to the silent room. Even with precursor augmentation, the gravitational displacement network cannot withstand an attack of this magnitude. President Santiago stood, her shoulders straight. What options remain? I am authorizing immediate activation of Project Omega, Wang replied, entering her command codes. All available spacecraft will begin emergency evacuation procedures, transporting as many civilians as possible to the outer colonies. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Project Omega would save millions, but billions would remain on Earth. Wang turned away briefly, recording a personal message to her family in New Shanghai. Her voice remained steady, professional, even as she bid them farewell. Aboard the Celestial Arbiter, Gary pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the protests of medical staff. We need to attempt another neural harmonization, he said, his voice weak but determined. The Nexus Forge recognized our patterns. We can use it again. Ambassador Morgan, a doctor objected, your neural pathways sustained significant strain from the first attempt. A second linkage could cause permanent brain damage or death. I concur with the medical assessment, Sentinel Estelle added, her carapace still pale from their previous connection. Your human physiology cannot withstand another full harmonization. Elder Meritin stepped forward, her luminous eyes studying Gary. There may be another option. I could join the neural link, using Ardani telepathic abilities to stabilize the connection and reduce the physiological strain on both of you. Sentinel Arkan's crystalline form pulsed with sudden intensity, a three-species neural linkage. It has never been attempted with such disparate neurological structures. What would it accomplish? Gary asked. With sufficient neural complexity, Arkan explained, we could potentially activate the Nexus Forge's most powerful function, a targeted dimensional fold that could remove the Sunforge from our reality entirely. The risks? Estelle inquired. Unknown, Arkan admitted. The outcome would be unpredictable and dangerous for all participants. Gary met Estelle's compound eyes, then nodded to Elder Meritin. Let's begin. On the Phantom, Lieutenant Wilson and Engineer Kuznetsov worked frantically to disarm the Veloxian device. Their fingers blistered from contact with superheated surfaces as they traced circuitry pathways. There, Kuznetsov said, pointing to a nested trigger mechanism. If we disconnect these three junctions simultaneously, it should neutralize the primary detonator. Wilson nodded, positioning his tools. On 3, 1, 2, 3. They moved in perfect synchronization, severing the connections. The device's status lights faded, its quiet humming ceased. Primary device neutralized, Wilson reported to the bridge, checking the mission clock. 90 seconds remained before the Sunforge's discharge. Secondary trigger detected, Chen's voice came through the comms. It's in the communication array. Kuznetsov was already moving, sprinting through superheated corridors toward the communications section. Wilson followed close behind, both of them gasping in the increasingly toxic atmosphere. They reached the communications array with seconds to spare. Kuznetsov scanned the compact trigger device, her expression grim. No time for conventional disarming, she said, grabbing an insulated tool from her belt. Without hesitation, she plunged her hands into the exposed wiring, physically grasping the power connections to the array. Wilson reached for her. Kuznetsov, weight, blue-white energy surged through her body as she severed the connections with brute force. She convulsed, then collapsed against the bulkhead, her hands severely burned but the secondary trigger successfully disabled. Quantum mirroring system online, Drake announced from the bridge. Activating now. The Phantom's specialized hull began to shimmer with energy as the quantum mirroring system engaged. creating a perfect reflective field calibrated to redirect the Sunforge's discharge. The temperature throughout the ship immediately spiked beyond sustainable levels. Warning indicators flashed across every console as systems began failing in cascade. The Sunforge released its lethal discharge, a concentrated stream of plasma many times more powerful than the first attack. It struck the Phantom's quantum mirror with devastating force. Drake opened a channel to Earth. His voice was calm despite the chaos erupting around him on the bridge. Reflection successful. It's been an honor. The redirected solar prominence curved away from Earth, doubling back toward the Sun with unerring precision. The concentrated plasma stream struck the Sunforge control station orbiting near the solar surface. The station's shields failed instantly against its own weaponized energy, disintegrating in a spectacular explosion visible throughout the solar system. On the Phantom, the hull temperature exceeded all survivable parameters. Metal warped and fused as the quantum mirror maintained integrity just long enough to complete its task. Then the ship itself began to disintegrate, consumed by the solar fire it had redirected. In the Celestial Arbiter's control nexus, Gary, Estelle, and Elder Meritin positioned themselves in a triangular formation around the Nexus Forge. Ancient interfaces extended to connect with each of them: crystalline tendrils for Estelle, luminous energy filaments for Meritin, and smooth metallic contacts for Gary. "Begin the sequence," Arkin instructed, monitoring the energy flows. The neural harmonization initiated, far more intense than Gary's previous experience with Estelle alone. His consciousness expanded exponentially, encountering not just Estelle's crystalline thought patterns, but also Meritin's fluid, multidimensional awareness. Their three minds: human emotion and creativity, Tholian precision and order, Ardani intuition and temporal perception, created a synchronistic pattern that resonated with the ancient machinery. The Nexus Forge responded with escalating power, its crystalline components glowing with intensifying energy. Sentinel Arkin stepped back, his form pulsing with amazement as he observed neural activity patterns exceeding precursor theoretical models. Gary experienced Estelle's consciousness directly, her mathematical thought structures now familiar from their previous connection. But through her perception, he also encountered Meritin's mind, an ancient consciousness that experienced time differently, perceiving past, present, and potential futures simultaneously. Their merged consciousness expanded through the Arbiter's systems, accessing capabilities dormant for 50,000 years. The ship's hull reconfigured further, revealing intricate mechanisms designed to manipulate the fabric of spacetime. In the midst of the chaotic space battle near Mars, a sudden energy wave emanated from the Celestial Arbiter. It expanded outward at superluminal speeds, passing harmlessly through human vessels but striking the Peacekeeper fleet with precision. Council ships suddenly lost power to weapons and propulsion systems, drifting helplessly in space. The three-way neural link had identified and isolated the specific energy frequencies used by Council technology, neutralizing their military capabilities without causing loss of life. With both the Sunforge destroyed and the Peacekeeper fleet neutralized, Admiral Wang seized the strategic advantage. She opened a system-wide communication channel to all vessels. "This is Admiral Mei Wang of Earth Defense Command. We are open to negotiations for immediate cessation of hostilities, under the condition that the Galactic Council formally recognizes both human sovereignty and the legitimacy of the Trinity Alliance." To emphasize her point, Wang activated Earth's defense grid at minimal power. Thousands of previously hidden weapon platforms throughout the solar system revealed themselves, far more extensive than Council intelligence had believed possible. On the Celestial Arbiter, the neural link between Gary, Estelle, and Elder Meritin finally collapsed under the immense strain. Gary fell unconscious, slumping against his restraints as his overtaxed nervous system shut down. Estelle's normally vibrant blue carapace faded to dull gray as she entered a regenerative stasis, her biological system struggling to recover. Elder Meritin remained semi-conscious, gasping for breath as medical personnel rushed to attend to all three participants. Her luminous eyes found Arkin's crystalline form. "We saw it," she whispered. "The convergence, not just entropy. An intelligence, ancient, hungry. It consumes organized matter to perpetuate itself." Arkin nodded solemnly. "Rest now, Elder. You have achieved what was thought impossible." As Meritin drifted into unconsciousness, the tactical displays throughout the solar system confirmed humanity's unexpected victory. Council ships powered down weapon systems, and emergency communication channels opened between former adversaries. The Battle of Sol had reached its turning point. Earth remained intact, the Sunforge destroyed, and the Council fleet neutralized through unexpected means. But the cost had been high. The Phantom and its crew sacrificed to save billions of lives on Earth. And in his unconscious state, Gary Morgan's mind still carried fragments of the vision he had shared with Estelle and Meritin, glimpses of the true nature of the convergence, and perhaps more importantly, how it might finally be defeated.